Hey everyone, it's Allie, and it's literally only been a single day, and we've already found some really nice tech for casting group Runemaster that's going to pretty severely increase its single target damage by quite a significant amount. So today we're going to be talking about a change to Lightning Blast. Now, this is something that just completely flew over my head, and I'm honestly really surprised I just did not see this tech from the beginning. So what we're going to be talking about today is going to specifically be closed circuit. What closed circuit does is that lightning blast can now chain onto you or your allies. And every time it does that, it's just going to give you additional damage and additional critical strike chance. Now, the thing about this is as well, the point before it, arcing power, straight up does not work at all because we are specifically triggering lightning blast through Dragon's Claw. Now, because of that, I personally just completely saw all of this as a completely dead talents that didn't do anything for our build, as this cannot be triggered. But I just failed to realize that, well, we are picking up 1 point in chain lightning because chain lightning helps quite a bit with the clear. And well, if we just had 3 points, 2 points to put into arcing power, which again does literally nothing, and then 1 point to pick up closed circuit, we could then make this chain on bosses chain back to us, giving us free critical strike chance and free damage. Well, it just so happens that, well, we are wasting 3 points in positive protection, which we just picked up because it was, well, the next best thing on the tree. There wasn't anything else that was useful. So instead, what we're going to be doing, we're just going to be dropping 3 points in positive protection, and you might have to drop 1 point in volatile lightning if you don't have, for example, a twisted heart for +1 additional elemental skills, which is completely fine. Even just 2 points in volatile lightning should permanently keep up full shock stacks on a boss. And then you're simply just going to pick up 2 points arcing power and 1 point in closed circuits to be able to get yourself the additional crit chance. Now, the first thing I want to talk about for this crit chance and the chaining potential of this is it's actually pretty large. For example, where I'm standing right now in comparison to target dummy is the maximum range at which it'll chain to me. As you can see, we just look at my increased damage. I currently have 0 increased damage. And if I were to attack with Frostclaw a few times, as you can see, my increased damage went up. That means that I am currently being chained to. If I walk a little bit further, if I walk back here, and then we look at my damage now, and if I were to attack, as you can see, I'm not getting any additional damage. So this is about the maximum range of it, which is quite a lot, given that typically you kind of want to be on top of boss anyways, like this, for you to be able to flame rush them so you can apply brand of subjugation onto them. Now, the other thing I want to mention about this is just how ridiculously powerful this is going to be on bosses. What this is going to mean is that you can basically drop most of your critical strike chance. As you can see, currently, I'm at 74% base critical strike chance with a Prismatic Gaze equipped. Well, if I were to take this off, and the only reason we're using this is for the high amount of critical strike chance it gives us, I go down to 52% critical strike chance. Well, as you can see here, if I just start attacking and I start getting chain lightnings to proc over to me, I'm going to go from 52% critical strike chance all the way up to about 95% critical strike chance. It's going to flicker a little bit, and it's going to depend on how much critical strike chance you have. But as you can see, I can pretty easily almost double my critical strike chance and almost be crit capped without Prismatic Gaze on. Now, if I were to put Prismatic Gaze on, well, as you can see, we are massively overkilling it, and we now have an additional 20-30% critical strike chance that, well, wasn't doing anything to begin with in the first place. The other thing to mention is if you look at my damage increases here, as you can see, I'm basically holding an additional 150% increased generic damage at all times. And because this is just generic damage, that means it's 150% increased spell damage and lightning damage at the same time, meaning that closed circuit is giving us somewhere around 300% increased damage at all times, making this actually a fairly powerful damage increase. Now, what does this mean for the build? Well, as I mentioned, you're just losing 3 points in positive protection, which didn't really do much in the first place. 6 ward on hit wasn't that much, considering this crit caps us, meaning we are now going to pretty much always benefit from Jagged Veil, which is substantially more ward per second than the points in positive protection would ever give you. And that means we will basically don't need Prismatic Gaze in the build anymore, allowing us to run whatever helmet we want. Now, I know this is going to reduce your crit chance for clearing, but realistically, that is not that big of a deal. It's completely fine, and with 50% crit chance, you're still going to feel just fine while doing all of your monolithing. I promise you it's not going to be that big of a deal, and realistically, while you're running around monolithing, while you might randomly be attacking like this, you might have a few of the chain lightnings actually apply to you, giving you some of your crit chance back. Now, it's not going to be all the time, because what's most likely going to happen if you go over here to the AoE dummies is that the chain lightning is going to chain off of the enemies rather than you instead. But you might sometimes get a few procs of it hitting you here and there, which means you might get a little bit of additional critical strike chance, make it not as bad. And if you are to stand next to an enemy like this, the chains will actually hit you more often than not, pretty much fixing most of the critical strike chance that you'd actually lose. So what this means for the build is, well, we never need Prismatic Gaze anymore, so we can now just go for a Ruined Visage or pretty much any helmet, which is going to give us additional intelligence, which the intelligence is going to scale Fragment Enigma substantially further, meaning that realistically, all the added damage you're going to give to your spark charges is going to more than make up for all of the critical strike chance they might lose. At the same time, we get additional critical strike multiplier because it's one of the best prefixes for our builds, and it was kind of hard to put that on a Prismatic Gaze. And finally, this means that we we don't need as much critical strike chance on the rest of our gear. That means on our rings, we can now instead look for elemental damage, or we can now potentially look for lightning damage, which is going to give us substantially more damage than before. Now, percent damage isn't that good and that crucial, but this does mean that these stats are going to do something for you instead of critical strike chance. And if you really wanted to, you could just stick with the critical strike chance if you want the additional critical strike chance while clearing. But simply due to the fact that closed circuit is going to crit cap you on bosses effectively, you don't even need these critical strike chance rolls to actually critical strike cap you at all. If you have any question on any of the tech cuties, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. Or feel free to come by my Twitch and ask me any questions you have there. The build guide will be updated with all these changes. So if you want to look at the written guide for all this, or if you want to look at the build planner, it'll all be linked in the description below with all the updated information. I hope you enjoy doing a little bit more damage. And I know it's going to maybe make your clear a tiny little bit worse, but again, your clear was already insane as it was. So you're honestly not going to even notice it, while you should be noticing quite a big DPS increase on bosses. With all I said, kitties, I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you all in the next video.